Guys, welcome to another episode of A Truth Bump. We are continuing the conversation from last week, as we always do. Today, we are conversing about the flow, aka the zone, also known as the zone. So this is it's perfect that we're talking about this pretty much immediately after speaking about the presence, the moment, the now. I think by now, this day and age, most people can relate to what the zone or the flow is. Back when I first started speaking, 15, 20 years ago, I'd have to explain to people, the flow when this happens and everything becomes effortless, and it kind of just go into this full description of what the flow feels like, or when you're in the zone, what it feels like. And the only person at that point back then that would kind of relate to what I'm talking about immediately was, an athlete or an artist, someone who would dance or sing. They would go, yeah, I know what that is. And but nowadays and age, these days, people know what the flow is. People have a pretty, strong reference point of what it feels like. But just in case you don't, the flow is that space that we find ourselves in where time becomes less relevant, almost irrelevant. Everything that you see and you're experiencing yourself around you, it kind of mends into one. Like there is no, this is where. I don't know. It's just it's like, and I don't want to make this woo-woo. The best way to have this explanation is to say that the relevance of time is just, it disappears, and you are so committed and involved in what is happening in the moment. And that sometimes it feels like it's not you that is actually even showing up. You're doing things or seeing things or hearing things that you didn't have the capacity to do, see, or hear. And by hearing, sometimes it's hearing your intuition, hearing your inner voice. By seeing, sometimes it's like seeing that the ball's got to go this way, or this is the next move, or you're seeing the next step before it even presents itself. You're seeing what the team, the opposition is doing, where normally you don't see that until it's happening or it's happened. So you start to, it's like a super being experience. And the thing about this flow state is that most people think it's random, and it's not. And what I want to share with you guys today is some insights in how to find yourself in flow state at will. It's not just random. Sometimes. Maybe someone experiences this when they're in danger, maybe in a car accident or something's happening, and they find themselves get into a flow state, and it seems like the time slows down and they knew what to do to maybe avoid the accident, or they, or maybe they were in the accident and they experienced everything slow down. So either way, this is a flow state, as I said, also known as the zone. You hear me talking a lot about pondering, and pondering is a flow state, guys. Any sense of creativity. When you're sitting down and having creative ideas, you're designing something. Dancing, singing, they're all creative states. Pondering, these are all states of flow. So. I want to share with you some reference points that's going to really help this land for you. And then I want to also share with you some ideas that will allow you to have more or greater opportunities of being in flow, so that you can create that opportunity or create that state of mind where it is at will. You can drop into the flow. So let me share with you some stories, and then I'll share with you some insights on how to create the opportunity for you to be in flow. So Obviously, you guys know I'm an aerobatic pilot, and that's one of my flow states. I can go into pondering. Pondering is my favorite flow state. I love getting into pondering. However, I've shared a session about pondering, so I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to give you some other life reference points. So, as an aerobatic pilot, when you're flying aerobatics, everything is so technical. It's like, you're not just randomly doing the maneuvers. There's so much that goes into play besides the engine management and the airspeed and all that. The environment that you're flying the aircraft in, having that spatial awareness of what's in and around you. Besides that, the actual the technical practice or technique that goes into actually flying a particular maneuver is a lot. It's like there's a lot of thinking process that takes place. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, hang on, if there's a lot of thinking process that takes place, I know my reference point of being in the flow is the thinking kind of disappears. You're right. That internal dialogue that sometimes we know as the internal noise, it disappears. And it's just, if there's any thoughts, it's this is happening, this is doing. Like it's not, and anyone who's a pilot or has experienced anything where they're doing something, I don't know, maybe just jumping out of a plane, maybe you ride a motorcycle really fast, maybe you're on a boat that goes fast. Anything that, especially that has speed involved, or danger, potential danger. It requires you to be really in the zone, to be in that flow state, because the ramifications, the consequences of not being in that state could be quite harming, or could potentially kill you. So, and that's why sometimes you find people love doing something that's extreme or that's dangerous, because they find themselves in a flow state. And so flying a plane, when I first started learning about aerobatics, like I said, there's so much technique that goes in there. So when I was actually trying the aerobatic maneuvers out, it was difficult because I was thinking about every single maneuver. I just recently, only 2 days ago, signed off 3 of my students to actually, to do the aerobatics. So they got the aerobatic endorsements. And before each lesson, I'd given them this 1 hour or 90-minute briefing all about the technicality of the figure and what they're going to do. And so I kind of fill up their heads with all these thoughts. And then we go out in the airplane and I basically tell them, don't think about it, just do it. Don't think about it. And I create scenarios where I'll get them to do a maneuver back to back. So they get to a point where they're just tired and they stop thinking about it, and it just, boom, there it is. So one of the things that I want to share with you here is that, practicing something over and over again is supportive for you to be in a flow state. So if there is an art that you have or something that you love to do, if you do practice it, you kind of, when you do something over and over again, you can remove the thoughts around it, because you're actually ingraining it into a pattern, if you like. You might not relate to this because it's flying and you don't actually fly, but you drive, right? And there was a point in your upbringing where someone sat you down in the car and started to teach you how to drive and how to park, and there's a lot of thinking that goes. There's a bit of technicality, when you're parking a car, when you're changing lanes, and probably at the beginning, you probably couldn't even listen to the radio or have any music on because it was distracting, because you just wanted to be focused on driving the car. But now you can drive the car quite simply, and there's no thought involved. It's just kind of like it's autopilot, and you can put the music as loud as you want if you're into that. So you can have a conversation with someone. Of course, we still can't touch the phone because that is distracting. Although as pilots, we are on the phone when we're flying sometimes. Not while we're doing aerobatics. But anyway, that's this different conversation. So the point is that when you practice something over and over again, it irons out the thinking. So that thinking is no longer required. And obviously, we want to do the perfect practice. It's the perfect practice that makes everything perfect, right? So we teach or we learn something and we do it over and over again in repetition allows the thinking to quieten down. Okay, so when you're actually going out there, you're flying the aircraft by feel. You're driving the car, riding your bike. You're doing it by feel rather than thinking. So in fact, one of the reasons I decided to become an aerobatic pilot, I don't have an adrenaline bone in my body. I'm not into, you might think to yourself, how can you have no adrenaline bone in your body? I mean, you love aerobatics. Isn't that high adrenaline? It's not really for me. It was never about that. I remember wanting to do aerobatics because it's more the advanced level of flying. And when I'm able to do that, I wanted to fly the plane like the way I drive my car. I love driving my car, especially when there's no traffic and you're going down you're driving somewhere far and you got a road trip. It's fun. I love driving. It's one of the joys of my life when there's no traffic, of course. So when I started to learn how to fly, it wasn't the same. There was just I remember the first time I took my girlfriend, which is now my wife, I just got my license. She was my first passenger, and we were ready to line up on the runway, and I was getting clearance for takeoff, and I had beads of sweat just dripping off my forehead. And she looked at me and she's like, "Are you nervous?" And I said, "No, I'm just hot." It was a hot day, I got to say. It was summer. But of course, yes. I mean, look, I wasn't nervous, but I wasn't completely comfortable. It's something new to me. And I thought to myself, I want to fly the plane in a state of mind like I have when I drive a car. So that's why I actually did the aerobatics. So it's not a adrenaline thing for me at all. But when I am flying the aerobatics, it's like everything disappears. Like in that moment, it's like, for me, we're dancing in the air. So if someone who's a dancer and they've choreographed a dance, we do the same, except we become one with the aircraft. The aircraft becomes an extension of us, if you like, as pilots, and we make this dance up in the air, and every figure is like a particular move in a dance. And to me, in that moment, and a dancer would understand, everything else disappears. What you got to do when you come back for landing, or did you leave the porch light on, or did you turn the oven off, or how am I going to pay these bills, or what's my next business move, or how can I make more money, or how can I reduce my expenses? All that is just gone. It's not there. There is one moment, and you're one with that moment, and everything that you do, you're doing it as one. It's just, that's the flow state. So the first thing I guess I'm sharing with you guys here is that, and I'm using aviation as a reference point here, is that you do something, if you love it, if you find something that you love, it's your craft, it's your art, as I like to call it, you do it over and over again. Repetition is what reduces that head noise. So then when you're actually out there doing and practicing your craft, experiencing it, you're doing it by feel, not by thinking. So the first thing about being in a flow state is that you want to do it by feeling. You want to connect to yourself in the moment. You want to do it by feeling. Now, here's the second thing I would like to share with you is that you can't do it by feeling unless you absolutely love the craft. It's got to be something you really enjoy, something that you really love. If it's not, then there's no feeling about it. So and don't get me wrong, it might not be a particular craft. I mean, I take passengers and they experience themselves being in a flow state with me. But obviously, I'm actually flying the aircraft. So you can experience being in a flow state, sharing someone else's craft. So let me give you an example. As an aerobatic pilot, I take up passengers all the time for joy flights. But sometimes, from time to time, I actually get coaching clients who actually hit me up and said, "Hey, I'd love to come up and fly with you, and maybe get to experience what you do in your aerobatic flights, and maybe you have some coaching for me at the same time." I'm like, "Well, sure." So of course they book a flight, and I strap them in. And at the beginning, they're just nervous, like everyone else, because it's the fear of the unknown. Believe it or not, for most people, it's the fear of throwing up. It's just, I just don't want to throw up, but it's the fear of the unknown. I don't know what this is going to be like. I'm telling them about the G forces that they're going to experience. They've never experienced G forces. They don't know what it's like. You have positive G's, you have negative G's, and it's just this big unknown. So that's all normal. And then once we line up on the runway, I add full power, and they immediately feel a bit of G force in my aircraft anyway, and we get airborne, and then it just kicks in right then and there. Like suddenly the nerves start to wander away, if you like. They start looking down, and people always say to me, "Oh, it feels so surreal." It's one of the words that's commonly shared with me when we're going out flying. And that's the thing, when you start to get into a flow state, it does feel surreal. It feels surreal. And it's one of the first things, like that's what I know. They're actually now, they're at the point of being in a flow state, or allowing themselves to go into a flow state. They go, "Oh, wow." And then they start looking at how many times have people been up on an aircraft? They see it all the time. They're flying all the time, in airlines and all that, but they come in this plane and we're flying around and they just go, "Wow, it just feels it feels surreal." And it doesn't feel real, they say. So anyway, right there, I know they're ready to get into a flow state. And then as I start doing the aerobatics, they're in a flow state. They're just, they're one with the moment. They're one with what's happening in their life, and in the plane, I should say, in this case. But we'll come back to being one with what's happening in your life in a moment. So here we are. We're flying around, and I do, maybe 10 minutes of aerobatics or whatever they can handle, and we fly back home, and they absolutely love it. And so they we come and land, and they go, "Oh, thank you so much. It was great. And do you have any coaching tips for me?" And I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. When we're up there, you said it was all so surreal. How did you feel when we're doing the aerobatics?" And they were like, "I just felt totally present. Like all the fear that I had, it disappeared, and I actually relaxed, and I felt really present. I felt like I was in a flow state." And I said to them, "Well, how did you get yourself into that flow state?" And they went, "Oh, I think I took a breath," and they try to find an answer. They try to look for what they did. And usually it's not. Like some of them go, "Oh, I took a breath and I made a decision to be present," but usually it's none of those, to be honest. And that's where I actually get to with this. And I say, "Well, let me tell you something. You had no choice but to be present. It's not, you didn't make a decision to be present in that moment. That's not what took you in a flow state. You had no choice. Why? Because something the very thing that you were experiencing while doing aerobatics commanded your attention. Like you were doing things you've never done before. You were seeing the world upside down. You were doing things, you were feeling things physically. There's G forces and high speeds and all. It demanded your attention. When your airplane's going straight up in the sky and then the airplane's going straight down to the ground, that demands your attention. That's what puts you in a flow state. So the lesson that I share with them is that, well, imagine that you did more in your life, things that demanded your attention. And that's what I mean by there's got to be a feeling. You got to do something that a feeling is there. You have a feeling for it. It might not be your craft, but it's a feeling. It's like there's a feeling, there's a love for it, right? When they're flying with me, something demands their attention. The experience that they're having, it demands their attention. Imagine you could do something in your life that demanded your attention. What is going to demand your attention? It's something that you love, something that you have a passion for. When you're doing something or pursuing something or mastering the craft of something that you love, there's a feeling around it, and it demands your attention, and that's what allows you to be in a flow state. So, 2 points I've made right now is, number one, it's like practice makes perfect. So when you keep practicing something, especially if it's your craft, it's something that you love, then you're ultimately going to get to a point where you naturally fall into a flow state and it becomes second nature. Every time you jump in the car, you can be in a flow state. The thinking is still happening, but it's happening like it's like the pilot flying an airplane in autopilot. It's happening automatically. So you're driving a car and you can actually go and think about the bills if you really wanted to, right? But that's not the driving that I was talking about that I love. The driving that I love is, long trips into nature, long drives, no traffic, that kind of stuff. So, but you get my point, right? It's when you practice something over and over again, it reduces the thinking noise. That allows you to be in the flow state. The second thing was to ensure that you have a feeling, you have a connection to what it is that you want to be in flow state for, right? And again, sometimes it's not necessarily a connection. Sometimes it's like it demands your attention. It could be a dangerous situation. Something just when it demands your attention, you're suddenly now devoted. Your entire focus, your entire attention goes into this one thing that is happening right now. That's what creates the flow state. So that's a couple of points that I wanted to share. Again, and then there is points as well, like some other reference points that I would like to share. Like for example, when you experience beginner's luck. Now that one is just by chance, if you like. Everything else that I'm sharing with you today is by choice. It's by having the willingness to devote your entire attention to this moment and what you're doing in this moment, which is what creates the flow state. But beginner's luck is something that sometimes people experience. But again, if you think about why we experience beginner's luck, let me share a story that I used to share many years ago about my first time I ever swung a golf club. I had my friend who took me out one day. I never played golf, and he said to me, "Oh, come on and play golf." And before we went out to the actual course, he said, "Let's go hit some balls at the range." So he puts a couple of balls down and gives me a club and just goes, "Well, have a swing," and without telling me the technique or how I should hold it. Like I think maybe he shared with me how I should hold the club, but didn't really go into the swing, or there was no thinking involved, if you know what I mean. So I just showed up and I was eager, I was open, and I had no expectations. Why did I have no expectations? Because I've never done this before. I don't know what it's meant to do. I can't remember what club he gave me. Was it a 7-iron, a 6-iron? I don't know. But I don't know what a 6-iron's meant to do. Like I've seen people hit the ball, but sometimes the ball goes up high and it's short. Sometimes I see them with this big, now that I understand, I've played golf, drivers, and it goes straight down. I didn't have any reference point of that. I had no expectation. There was no pressure on me to do well. I didn't want to prove anything to him because he knows I've never played before. So anyway, he puts the ball down, I line it up, I take a swing, and it just floats over, and it gets air time, and it's like, and he looks at me and he just went, "Do it again." And I was like, oh. And I remember that when after my first swing, I thought, oh, that was fun. Like I really connected with the ball and it took flight and it was magical. I thought, oh, this is fun. So I had another swing. And of course, you like my sound effects. It's not exactly like that, is it? But the ball goes again, like even further this time. And most importantly, if you play golf, it went straight. I didn't slice it or anything like that. It just went straight. And he looked at me and went, and just gave this, took a pause and just took a long look and went, "Do it again." And I thought to myself, oh, okay. And he put another ball down. I did it again. And he's just again, this time he took another long pause and he's like, "Mate, you're pulling my leg, aren't you?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You've played before." I said, "No, I've never played." He goes, "You've swung a club before." I go, "No, this is the first time I've actually swung a club. I've never done this before. And he goes, mate, you might be onto something. This might be your craft. This might be, you're pretty good. So he puts the next ball down there, and I thought to myself, wow, he thinks I'm pretty good. I didn't even try to do that. Like, let me try now. Let me build my expectation. And I introduced expectation to my shot. And I thought, well, I went that far now. Well, let me get it further. And now all the thinking came in. And now I started to grip the club more tighter, where before it was just loose. Now I started to get, my temperature started to change. I started to feel the sweats, right? And I told my friend, move away, because now I'm going to really hit this thing. And of course I swung, and the ball was still sitting at my feet. And he went, I thought so. It was just beginner's luck. But you know, what is beginner's luck? Right there, I had a moment of being, and like I said, it's more random. They're the random moments. But you can dissect this and go, well, why was it random? It was random because I didn't have any thinking about it. I didn't know what it was meant to do. So I was open to what? To being in the moment. Open to being in tapping into infinite possibilities. Anything could happen with this. Right? And most importantly, I didn't have any expectations. I'll say that again. Most importantly, I didn't have any expectations. So that's one of the biggest things that will actually kill your flow state. If you want to actually tap into the flow state, guys, the first thing you want to give up is any expectations. And now I know you want to do well. Now I know if it's your craft, it's your art, you want to do better than the last time. I know that the biggest, competition is yourself. I get all that. And you want to beat yourself. You want to do better than what you did last time. But that's immediately going to take you out of the moment, because the expectation of what you did last time and where you could potentially be and where you should be that's the future. Both that is the past and future. And what you got to understand about flow state, it's the present moment. It's the now. Manifestation is something that moves. It presents itself. The opportunity happens from the now. So expectation is the first thing that's going to kill any opportunity that you have to actually be in a flow state. So if anything, I would invite you to give up the expectation. I understand you want to work your craft, you want to do better, you've got your last score, you want to do better than that. I get it. But when it's time to fucking get up to that ball, it's time to tee off, it's time to go, whatever it is, you better let go of all those expectations, because you will not be in the moment. All right? There is no expectations for now. I mean, it's now. It's the present moment. How can you have expectations from now? When you're completely in the present moment, there is, if you think about it, when you're in the flow state, you don't have expectations. You can see what's taking place. You can see that the ball's going to go that way, but it's not an expectation. You can see the steps that you're taking and potentially the next step, but nothing more. It's all in the moment. Right? So how can you have expectation in the moment? So, I mean, there's something that you need to reflect on and ponder for yourself. If you're truly in the moment, and someone who's truly being in the moment, there is no expectations from the moment. The moment you have an expectation, it's for the future, or it's influence from the past. That's it. So again, we talked about having practicing your art, doing something that you have a connection to, right? It's something that would demand your attention, right? And thirdly, we want to make sure that remove any expectations. Okay, I mean, think about it. If you placed expectations in the bedroom, what would normally happen? I mean, if you want to even, making love with your partner, that's a flow state. I mean, it should be. right? And if it's not, it's because you're overthinking it. And why are you overthinking it? Because you're bringing expectations in the bedroom. You're bringing expectations of previous lovers, what it was yesterday, what you want, what it is of the future. Like, you're disconnecting from the feeling, right? And now your love making, I should be doing a whole sex talk here, right? It's a thinking process. Right? I mean, I know, there's lots of men who have dysfunctions in the bedroom, for example, and they have, what is it called? They can't get erect, right? Or they can't sustain their erection, right? What's that all about? Do you think that's it's purely because they're starting to think about it. Right? You don't get an erection from thinking, you get an erection from feeling. You don't get a connection from thinking, you get a connection from feeling. It's one of the most sacred moments that we have. Love making is an opportunity for you to be completely in the flow state. You lose yourself. You lose your partner. Like you find each other as one. Like it's quite magical. But I'm just dropping that in as a reference right there. I'm not here to improve your sex lives, although this may improve your sex lives. You never know. But I'm just trying to give you as many reference points as I can. Got to take a breath. There's just so much to, there's so much to cover here in relation to flow state. And look, to be honest, I will probably do, no doubt, I will do more conversations about flow state, maybe further down the track when you've done more truth bumps, because every time you do a truth bump, it's not just you're learning something or having deeper realizations. It's like your capacity to learn becomes greater. So some of the things that I could share about flow state right now, it's not ready to share right now. Maybe I'll share it in 6 months. Maybe I'll share it in 3 months, because your capacity, because you've done so many truth bumps by that point. You've grown, you've expanded, you've become more aware, and therefore I can now talk about it. So, there's some things that you wouldn't talk to your 4-year-old about because they just don't have the awareness or the experience yet. So same thing with flow state, or anything that I actually share, to be honest. Hopefully you're noticing that as you're doing each weekly truth bump, you're diving deeper, you're going deeper, you're expanding, you're becoming more aware. Your life experience is beginning to change, and you're noticing that the truth bumps are becoming more deeper as we go along. So that's what I can share about flow state at this point. The thing is now is to be able to practice to be in flow state at will. So what do you need to be in flow state? Well, you need the now. Okay, what do you need to let go of? Well, you need to let go of any expectations, right? What do you need to do? You need to feel. Be in the moment. Feel. What do you feel, right? Like, and you need to feel what you're doing. I'll give you a quick reference point before we do wrap up. Those who run, I love getting on the treadmill, going for a run while I'm at the gym. Sometimes I do a 20-minute run, half an hour run, 5-kilometer run before I actually jump into the gym session. Before even, probably a better example is when I used to soft sand. I would run on the soft sand. My calves kept blowing up, so I stopped doing that. But anyway, here I am at Bondi Beach going for a soft sand. I would normally do 4 to 6 laps. Now that's quite hard. Anyone who's ever ran on soft sand, it's like 4 or 5. Sometimes some people say it's 10 times harder than running on asphalt, right? So here I am doing 4 to 6 laps of soft sand, which is really taxing on your legs and your calves, and it's a pretty heavy cardio exercise. But the point I'm making is that every time I would go running, I would find myself in a flow state, and it's wonderful. But what would take me out of the flow state almost every time, guaranteed, is if I start to think about how long have I run for, or how long have I still got to go? Because what am I doing? Taking myself out of the moment. How long have I run for? The past. How many more laps do I still need to go? The future. Almost guaranteed every single time, bang, it takes me out of the flow state. What does that feel like? Well, suddenly I was gliding on the soft sand, Now my legs became heavy. It's almost like they were concrete. It's just like I lose that flow that I had. It's suddenly it's harder to breathe, and I like everything. All my muscles feel tighter, right? Right there, I'm out of flow state. What does it feel when I drop back in? And how do I drop back in? I just bring my attention back to now. I just go, I'll just take the next step. Just focusing on the next step. Not how fast I'm going. I'm not focusing on my speed. I'm just focusing on the moment, focusing on my breath. And before I know it, I'm there. I'm back in the flow state. And how does that feel? It just feels, again, effortless. It's not effortful, it's effortless. I'm gliding, and I feel like I'm suddenly 10 kilos lighter for some reason. you guys know what it feels like, right? I don't need to do a 30-minute talk of what it feels like to be in flow state. But another reference point. So that one is a good one. Well, how long have I? Well, again, it's not just always about running. If I'm not a runner, I don't relate to that. Well, you do that in your finances. You do that in your business. You do that in your life. Where should I be right now in my life right now? I wish I was here. That's taking you out of flow state, right? You're relating, you're measuring your moment based on what's happened in the past or based on your potential of the future. It's the moment. I'll give you one more reference point and then we can wrap up, right? Again, I didn't want to go talking about pondering because, although that's my favorite thing to talk about, it really is an art and a craft itself. And everything that I share with you guys is from a pondering state. Right now, this very talk, for the most important thing for me was to be in a pondering state for me to talk, be in a flow state for me to talk about flow state. There's no use me coming in here talking to you about flow state and I'm not in a flow state. Have you gathered that I am in a flow state? I am. I can tell you. I can assure you right now, I'm in a flow state, right? It's not thinking that comes into my head. It's just, it's funny though. As soon as I talk about I'm in a flow state, I lose my flow state. Like I can feel myself dropping out of my flow state. Anyway, let's get back into it. So, pondering. When we do pondering, what is the mantra that I share with you guys? There's nowhere to be. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to accomplish. And there's nothing to figure out. What are you removing? The past, the future, and your expectations. Right there is your ability, your invitation. As long as you got the willingness, you will drop into flow state. As soon as you have expectation to drop into flow state, as soon as you have expectation to get something from your pondering or to be in pondering state, you don't get in. Expectation it's like, your card that says you're banned. It's like sometimes you're, it's what just closes the door on you. That's the best way I can explain it for you. So lots of reference points, lots of things for you to ponder on and reflect on. I wish you happy and consistent practicing in being in flow state. Go and write down all the points that I've just shared with you. I've made 4 or 5 different points. Write them down. Listen to this twice if you need to. I would recommend it, okay? And go and practice. Practice makes perfect. Practice actually being in flow state, right? But please don't take the expectations with you, okay? Because that would be an immediate failure. All right, guys. Happy being in flow state and zone. Hey guys, well done. You've just completed this video. How do you feel? I'm just here just to remind you that in order for me to continue to support you, it's important for you to continue to support this work. Please like this video and also press subscribe, and remember to press the bell icon as well so you get notified every single time I release a video. I'm going to be releasing so much content here that's going to support you. If you're looking for something even more, like you're looking for a community to be part of, some extra support, some extra coaching, you're looking to share your journey with other people, then go ahead and visit my website at amirzoghi.com, and there'll be some information there on how you can be more involved. Also, I read all the comments. I'd love to hear your experience. I want to release these videos for you. I want to support you. I love to see how it's landing for you. What's your experience of the videos? Do you have any questions? So remember to comment below and I'll be responding to those messages as well. Thanks guys. I'll see you on the next video.